Good afternoon to everyone from Hong Kong. So we kick off the fourth day of DACA Data Art for Climate Action. So we have about 10 minutes before we kick off the day's proceedings with the paper session, the third paper session of the conference. So before we begin with the paper session, I will just go through the proceedings for today very briefly. And then if we have time, we would like to just briefly introduce the institution here where we work, and in particular Sound Lab, which is 3D audio art and research unit, which is co-directed by Magnus Lindborg and myself, Ryo Ikeshiro. So yeah, so hello everyone. So my name is Ryo Ikeshiro. As part of this conference, I am the art track chair, and I am co-curating the exhibition, Data Art for Climate Action Gallery. And today I will be chairing several of the sessions. So from 2 o'clock Hong Kong time, we have the third paper session. And then from 3, we have our second works in progress session, where we have quite a few presenters. And then from 4:45, we have the exhibition tour and meet the artist session. So more about that when that starts. And then from 6, we have our second panel discussion on the topic of communicating climate change. And then to close things up, at 7:30, we will have a final session. So just to provide some context into where we are and what we're doing, and yes, and to actually, I guess, put this the conference into place it in the context of what we do. So I would like to introduce Sound Lab. So let me just share my screen. Okay, can you all see my screen? Okay, so Sound Lab so Sound Lab is a physical space and a research and art unit co-founded by Magnus Lindborg and myself. We are aiming to investigate high spatial resolution audio and its use in sound art, design, and perception research. You can find more information about our work at our website, which is soundlab.scm.ctu.edu.hk. So we, the Sound Lab is housed in the Creative Media Center, which is where our school, the School of Creative Media, is based. So we are part of the School of Creative Media. It's a multidisciplinary school, and it also includes yes, the discipline of sound, but there has been a lack of continuity with faculty who's specialized in sound, and so it's only been in the recent few years, or year and a half or 2 years, that for Magnus and myself have began working here, and so this is our effort to begin a process of establishing a way of working, which involves not just ourselves but others. And we are part of the Center for Applied Computing and Interactive Media, and so we are we are part of a joint fellowship from the Center for Applied Computing and Interactive Media. So most of the information is online. So I won't dwell on all the points here. But just to note that we have 6 objectives, and they relate to research and artwork primarily, but they also include teaching and outreach. So outreach in the form of concerts, which we're trying to organize, and perhaps residencies later on down the line. And so yeah, so this is online, so please have a look at the website and read more about read about it in more detail there. I will just show you a few more pictures. So these pictures are the interiors of the multimedia theater, which is the space that's been allocated to us. It's a shared space. It's shared both with other departments at the university, as well as other faculty and courses taught here. So we are in the middle of designing and constructing a semi-permanent setup of 24, 25 speakers in order to create a high resolution loudspeaker array suitable for playing back ambisonics. So incidentally, this space is where some of the events were scheduled to take place for DACA. They are still taking place in DACA, even though it's not open to the public, unfortunately. But this will also give you an indication of what we are doing for Sound Lab, as well as what we were hoping to do for DACA, which hasn't been possible. So this is a very large space. It measures, I think, about 12 meters by 18 meters, and the height is, I believe, about 8 or 9 meters. And for a space of this size, the acoustics are good. It is dry considering the dimensions. And so our plan is to use some of the existing infrastructure to mount speakers. And so here's a picture of us with a mock-up of where the speakers might go. And here are some diagrams which show you the various rings of speakers that we will be fixing in the near future. Okay, so as we proceed with the DACA, the conference, please imagine that you are in this space and that you are taking part in the proceedings in this environment. Okay. Okay, so okay, so I would like to begin today's proceedings with the first session, which is the third paper session of the conference. So first, we have a paper titled Sounding Climate, Exploring Climate Change Through Music and Maps by Clara Desser, Sharon Clark, Lisa N. Gardner, Becca Hathaway, Adam Phillips, Martin Quinn, Matt Rame, and Tim Shaitlin. Okay, and then after that, we have Sonifying data, taking action on climate change, a review of cases from the Data Sonification Archive. And this presentation will be by Sara Lenzi and Paolo Ciuccarelli. Okay, so I believe that the format is to have a 10-minute presentation, 15-minute presentation, with time for questions later on. I'd just like to ask, so now I'm just wondering, so we don't have Clara Desser here, do we? Do we have any of the co-authors here at the moment? Do we have a like pre-recorded presentation for them? So I remember that was an option, but
no, we don't. Let me triple check, because I know that Clara has been a bit back and forth with that.
yes. I mean, I remember. Yeah.
So
Okay.
let me triple check here.
I can speak for 45 minutes if you want.
Okay, you can have yes.
Sara,
yes,
such a sport.
Yes. Either on your own paper or their paper or another paper. Yes, you have the full time. Yeah. For Magnus, maybe we should swap anyway. I mean, like if
I agree.
Is there a chance that they're just late?
Could be.
Yes, in which case, we shouldn't. They can just go second.
They are. She is in she's in America somewhere, and that's of course very bad hours for her.
Yeah. Okay.
She's in Colorado. One of the emails spells it out. That must be like 12 hours away. Okay, so I suggest then that we invite Sara.
Yes, so let's proceed, and if they show up, then yes, we can just see what happens then. Okay. Yes. So in which case then I guess we should keep an eye on the time just in case they turn up, but it doesn't sound like they will do. No. Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. I thought I had 20 minutes, so my presentation is about 20 minutes. I can rush, but if we have the time.
No, that's fine. Actually. So let's do that, and then if there is time, perhaps it's best to develop that into a discussion. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So first, in which case we are going to just swap the order of the paper. So first we have Sara Lenzi and Paolo Ciuccarelli with Sonifying Data, Taking Action on Climate Change, a review of cases from the Data Sonification Archive. So over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rio, and thank you, Per Magnus, for organizing this. Thank you for having me here. It's a bit early in Bilbao, not too bad still. As you can hear, my voice is still a bit night voice. Let me share. It will just get better as I start talking. Okay, do you see my screen? Yep. Oh, wait. I think if I do the presenters mode, it goes to the other screen I have. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so as Rio anticipated, my presentation is Sonifying Data, Taking Action on Climate Change, and it's basically a review of cases from the Data Sonification Archive. I delivered the presentation, but it's been prepared together with Paolo Ciuccarelli, who is the director of the Center for Design at Northeastern University in Boston, where I am currently a postdoc researcher. He's not here, he's in America, in fact, as well, so quite a bad timing for him. What is the Data Sonification Archive? It's an online curated collection of sonification projects that we launched early 2021, I believe the 1st of January 2021. And we see it at the Center for Design as part of a broader research endeavor that we are developing, in which data, sonification, and design converge to explore the potential of sound in complementing other modes of representation and in broadening the publics of data. We have at the moment 358 cases. Curated collection means that the cases are either submitted by anyone, pretty much, through the submission form that it's available on the website, or uploaded by the team. And once they are uploaded, we later review each and all cases, and we categorize them based on a series of categories that we have in our metadata at the moment. Cases range from the very first one in 1914 to 2021. We still don't have a case for 2022, so if you have one, please send it. They are organized at the moment by topics, and they span 32 topics. We also ask ourselves what was the goal of the author in creating the sonification, and we identified 10 goals at the moment. We then categorize them by sonification methods, which is parameter mapping, model sonification, audification, and then we are identifying other things like the media mix. So which media are combined, coexist in the sonification? Is it only sound or other things? This is a broad, this is a general overview, difficult to read, but I want you just to focus on the topics. As you will see, physical sciences occupy a big area. Climate change comes fourth. We wondered whether to list climate change under physical sciences. It has, of course, that side, but as Andrea Polli was saying yesterday in her keynote, and as it is clear pretty much to, I believe, at least anyone that is here today, climate change is not a scientific topic. Climate change has become really a political, a social, extremely relevant issue, so we decided to keep it separate. We have at the moment 19 cases that focus on using sound and other media to represent, analyze, and communicate to the public climate change. The first was released in 2007, and the last that we have is 2021. We organized them around three main goals. As you see on the left of this alluvial diagram, as for the goals, public engagement and art are quite well balanced. As you will see when I go into the details of each case, it's not always easy to say what is art, what is public engagement. Maybe we'll have the opportunity to chat about it a bit later. What is really, what's the border there? Well, I'll tell you more later, but we usually rely on interviews, description, the words of the author, the context. And then we have two cases that we labeled as research, because they use sound mainly in a scientific perspective, so for experts and to analyze data. As for the method, the vast majority use parameter mapping. There is one audification case, and it seems that, yeah. And as for the what we call the media mix, 10 out of 19 cases, so again the majority, use only sound as a sensory modality. Let's say they are pure sonifications, even this is not so black and white, as you will see. 6 cases couple sound with a data visualization that happens at the same time, and that the user can see at the same time as they hear the data, and 3 use video. A little bit more into the analysis of some of these 19 cases. The climate data sonifications is a series of works, of orchestral works by the composer Jenny Pereira, released between 2015 and 2020. Pereira uses Western classical music to represent different aspects of climate change. And it does so in combination with different media and in different contexts. Sometimes it's a concert, a public lab, a lab open to the public, a podcast, streaming, live installations, live video performances. We put under art 5 of these 6 works and 1 under public engagement. Obviously, it also depends when the inclusion in the database in the Sonification Archive was done. Is a living creature, so we are all the time reviewing the metadata and trying to refine categorization. But let me go to the next. Why 1 is public engagement? Well, it's the first iteration of this work, the Climate Symphony, and we said public engagement instead of art because it was presented as a podcast at the Transformation Marathon in London in 2015, and the Transformation Marathon addresses political and physical shifts, asking how significant change can be achieved today. So it is not, strictly speaking, an art forum, it's a political forum, it's a social forum, and therefore we said public engagement rather than pure art. Media mix. When it's a concert or even when it's an installation, we say then it's only sound. In some cases, the work is coupled with the data visualization, as you see. Go again to the following slide in this example. This image here is the performance guide that is given to the public during the performance for Anthropocene in C major of released in 2020. But as you can see, it's also a data visualization of the impact of human activity on climate. Methods. Jamie uses pretty much always parameter mapping. He uses music. So he uses a form of sonification that some authors, that sometimes is referred to as musification, because data are used to build musical compositions. I have an example prepared. It's the teaser of Anthropocene in C.
Sarah, no sound from your media.
Yeah, because I realize now I forgot to, sorry, to thick share sound when I share the screen. Next example from our very Per Magnus Lindborg, the Locus Roth series. Again, a series of works rather than one sonification project, released between 2013, 2015, but if I'm not wrong, it was performed later as well. And is a series of mixed media immersive and interactive installations of weather data sonification and climate prediction of how the weather will change up to 2055 in Southeast Asia and in Mediterranean basin. In this case, we said this is the goal of this is art. Per Magnus is here. We can talk about it later. Why? Mainly because of the context of fruition of these works. It's been depending on the iteration of the work, but it's been concert halls, museums, exhibition spaces, art festivals. So the context is an art context, so to speak, as the method is parameter mapping. I would say we categorized it under sound only, even if interesting aspects of this work that you can read at the bottom of the slide is that sound is used in combination with something. Sometimes it's a graphical user interface because there's an app that the public can use attached to the project. Some other time is surround sound. There are iterations with 24 speakers. I will show you an example later. Sometimes it's gesture because it's with dance and dancers and choreographers. Sometimes it's sonic sculptures, as you see in this picture. So it's sound combined with a broader range of multisensory experiences. This work has also been distilled into scientific publications, which I thought it was an interesting aspect. I have the examples prepared here.
The climate is described by the atmospheric pressure, temperature, wind strength, humidity, and precipitation, that is, rainfall. A day of rain corresponds to the sound of a plucked string.
This has been a presentation of LW24, a sonification installation that was exhibited at the National Gallery of Singapore in December 2015. I want to thank my
So as you heard, this was at the National Gallery of Singapore in 2015, and the sonification also has a narrator who is part of the sound experience of the listener. Next example, this is something that Moritz Stefaner included in his keynote speech. So I don't know if you were there, but I will mention it again because it has some interesting differentiating aspects from the other projects. It's called Shifting Apple Blossom in Bremen. If I'm not wrong, is a student's project by Katja Striedermeyer in 2019. And she uses a sound object, a tiny sound object, a music box, to represent and communicate the trend in what it is an anticipated flowering season of apple trees in Bremen, but it reflects a global trend, or most certainly a trend in the entire Germany. And it's due to the increase in temperature in Europe. So her goal is public engagement. Why? Because the object is not part of an art exhibition. It's a kind of personal research experiment, and it is showcased really to engage the audience in understanding what's happening. It uses sound in combination with data visualization because the very score of the music box, as Moritz showed, the visualization of the data that Katja used for the sonification. Again, she uses music. The result is a musical composition. And interestingly, she uses an artifact. We have a couple of cases that use music boxes on the archive. The other is for COVID-19 data. Could it be defined an acoustic sonification? In the alluvial diagram that I showed at the beginning, in the archive, we have one case that is labeled as a method, acoustic sonification, and this is the Stephen Barras's resonating bells, and we called it like that because the author defines it acoustic sonification, but I think is a term that could be used for other works. Sorry.
I had a dream that
competing media. Apologies with these examples. I don't know. I don't control it too well. Yeah, here we go.
An acoustic sonification.
Yeah. Keep going. See. Next example, the Natural Lottery by Miriam Quick and Duncan Gear, the Loud Numbers duo that is also part of DACA Festival with this same project, and is a sonification of the data on the ice melting time in winter season in Nanana, Alaska. And as the data are recorded by the local residents that used to have a bet on when the Tanana River and freeze is using a tripod that they place on the river. So the goal is public engagement for us, because this project is released through a podcast series, is a podcast episode, and the authors really explain how the project was built, why they did that, what data they use. It's again a musification project, as well as a techno music piece. Therefore, the media mix that they use is only sound. I play you an excerpt.
1917.
Every time you hear ring sound is 1 year going by. Then this is an example that is actually categorized under research, but it's not so clear to me, so I wanted to include it in this presentation. It's by the ecologist Lauren Oakes, who worked together with the composer Nick Sowe between 2011 and 2012 to musify, again, it's a musical piece, the result, the effects of climate change on the native yellow cedar in Alaska, actually in the Alexander Archipelago of Alaska. So temperatures are rising, and the native flora is suffering, and basically trees are dying, and other species are emerging. So Oakes collected data. She's a biologist, she's an ecologist, so her and her scientific team collected data for research purposes, but then she wanted to find a way, in her own words, to engage with the affected local communities, so to show them the effect that this was and is going to cause on their economy that still relies pretty much on the yellow cedar. And therefore she thought of creating, to communicate this data, a more engaging way. I will show you the example, focus on these 2 points that to me are very interesting for the conversation. So the more silence we have in the composition, the more the notes drop, the more trees are dying. And high-pitched notes represent younger trees that apparently are dying quicker than older trees. So what I find interesting is that in the article of The Atlantic, where the example is taken from, Oakes at a point says that she interviewed many local residents, and they also, when they talk about this phenomenon, they get emotional, and there's a lot of silence, a lot of pauses in the interview. And that she felt the sonification somehow, with this use of silence to represent dead trees, seemed to echo the emotional reaction of the interviewees. But then at the same time, the composer Sowe says that he tweaked the data for aesthetic reasons, not really tweaked the data, but he made some aesthetic decisions. For example, some compositional decision. He decided to use a minor tone instead of a major tone. And so the journalist of The Atlantic asks himself, if he had he used a major tone, would have we related to the data differently? Would have we felt that this is a happy phenomenon, that something positive is going on. And as a consequence of this last question and last case, I took some minutes more, which is Too Blue by Brian Faux, also known as the data-driven DJ. He sonified data on the coastal land loss in Louisiana, a land loss that is due mainly to oil drilling and other human activities and climate change. It's art because this author, whom I interviewed and I know his work well enough, says that what he wants to do is creating musical pieces. He uses data as an excuse for composition to experiment on different styles of music. So he does musification. Very often he couples it with a video so the user can also have a context, a broader context on the phenomenon and on the data that he used. But he says, he told me, I am agnostic towards the data set. So let's see how clumsy I can be. So Brian uses sound samples from the New Orleans brass bands tradition as an homage to Louisiana, obviously, but in doing so, he adds an aspect, let's call it an aesthetic aspect, that might interfere, or perhaps not. Let's see what you think, on the perception by the listener on the phenomenon. So what is the role? This brought us to ask ourselves at the archive, what is the role of the choices of the designers and of the artists? What is the impact of their intention when they take decisions on how they communicate, especially socially relevant phenomena, to a broader audience, in our case, through sound? So can we really say we are agnostic towards the data set? I leave you with a couple of thoughts. We are doing this research of the archive because we see the use of sound together with other sensory modalities as a step forward toward the engagement of a broader public with techno-scientific knowledge, which is not an easy relationship, such as that surrounding climate change is a scientific knowledge that has become political and social. And by collecting these cases through the Sonification Archive, we aim to increase the impact of these communication efforts. We are trying to generate new knowledge through the analysis of the archive on how design can contribute to enhance the public engagement on socially relevant issues and possibly trigger action. And thank you. Sorry, I took some more time, mostly because I've been clumsy with the examples.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
That always messes up the sound examples. I'm really sorry, but luckily we had a little bit of time.
Yes. No, thank you. No, thank you so much for your presentation. Your project really sounds like I know it is a very useful resource for exactly this topic, which is what we're discussing here at this conference. And it's also nice to see that there are works in the archive which are part of this conference, which are part of this the gallery here. So as well as the Natural Lottery, we also have Jamie Pereira's Anthropocene in C major as well. Yeah, so we have that as well. So it's not
my attention.
Yeah, so it's not the the version that you showed. So I believe that the version you showed is I think something that he's still working on. So he said it was for a festival in Adelaide, which is happening perhaps now or next month. And then for us, he created like a different version, a longer version, but through a slightly related but related process using different visual material. Yeah, so we have that here as well, and online. So you can see I think a 42-minute version of that on the gallery website. Yes, so yes, I feel it's very relevant to what we're doing, and yes, the kinds of discussions I think which we would like to have. So I think I will ask those in the audience whether you have any questions. So if you have any questions, please just yes, raise your hands or just yes, speak out.
Hello.
Morgan? Is
Hey.
it Morgan Jenks?
Yes.
Yes. Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for putting the conference on. I'm not quite sure how to preface, or maybe I'll just maybe ask the question that was immediately on my mind. But do you have any examples of which projects in the data set were the most virally popular, or had the most circulation among the networks and things?
No, we don't use this parameter, but it's actually a great idea. That would be very relevant in this case, at least. No, we don't. We didn't think. We really didn't think of it. So thank you for the.
Yeah, it's something I personally struggle with. Always feeling unpopular personally, and I feel like maybe people who are interested in these kind of media projects, experimental processes and stuff like this, it's sort of identifiable. But in terms of public action and things like this, it's sort of the flip side of that. And this is something that I'm it's not a core fixation of mine, but it's something that sort of plagues me. Yeah.
We are trying now, because the archive doesn't store the projects, obviously, because this would entail a different process and communication with the authors as well. So we just link to the project, and at the moment we are now implementing a system in which each project has a different URL. For now it doesn't, so we cannot now check which projects were clicked, for example, within the archive. This could be a first indication. So it will be done, I hope by mid-March. We will have this individual URL, so we will start to share the projects on our social media and see the reaction, and also this will allow us to see which projects are more popular inside the archive. As for the outside world, I think I'm adding a column to the database to monitor, but it's not so well. Some projects are there are even projects in the archive that are not even public, that we have only journal article, but it's a sonification. So because our goal is really to map the territory of sonification, we are putting everything in. Some projects are not even meant to be used by the public, or they are based on software that is in a lab. So it's in the archive, but we have no way to see if it was even ever used unless we contact the author. So the parameters are very different. It won't be a criteria that can be homogeneous or transversal to all of the cases, but it's definitely an important, the success of sonification is a very big question mark in general. It's been in my, I finished my PhD last year, and one of the points is, how do you measure if it worked? when it's art or when it's public engagement, when it's a social issue, maybe this parameter can be slightly different. I mean, the impact on the listener can be measured differently from when a sonification is for an expert that has to understand the data and take a specific action. So because the field is still so young and so diverse, finding the right criteria is not so easy. That's why I was saying we keep looking at the metadata and saying, why did we catalog this like that? It should be here, it should be there, and it keeps changing all the time. Well,
Can I just add something? So so at the end, when one of your final slides said something like the aim is to effect climate change policy, the policy that leads to climate action, and so so perhaps we can say that this is one of the aims for using this kind of data, sonifying it. But obviously that's not the only aim. And so in your examples, you have various categories. If we just, for example, if we take, for Magnus's examples, that was probably, what you might think of as the most, I guess experimental music oriented example, in that, the aim, the aim of that work, I'm sure also includes elements of public engagement, and I'm sure there's a reason why he chose this data. But the aim is not just so that lots of people click on his work. I'm sure Magnus would like that, but I think there are obviously other reasons for making art generally. Yes, and so perhaps that is relevant to some of the examples in the archive, namely the public engagement ones. So, perhaps you can say that you can measure their success in terms of how viral they become, but perhaps it's not that relevant for the other examples. Yeah. And I think that maybe the archive is a way to address that. So you might have examples which are more popular, but others which are not so. And then by providing this resource, it's a way for people to find those other examples, which you might not come across on social media if you're not part of these experimental music or art circles.
I think Joyce has a question.
Hi, Sara. Great to see you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking us through this archive that we have put together. Essentially, some of my thoughts were actually expressed already by Morgan about the kind of impact a piece of artwork would do to promote action in keeping with climate very aware, how the audience would be very kept aware of climate change. And also, I think Leo touched on that as well. So my question goes back a little bit, is to say, maybe you have already said, but I might have missed it. So if I have done so, please excuse me. It's really, do you go onto the internet and choose, like you scan through the network to see who has done sonification, or do they submit their work to you to be included in the archive? Or maybe it's a combination of both. I'm not quite sure. Would you be able to tell me that? How did you gather your first batch of works?
Yeah, thank you, Joyce. Yes, it's a combination of the two. The first bulk of cases, maybe just 20-25 cases, was something that I was collecting for my research, the PhD research, and mainly for an article, let's say an investigation I started with Paolo Ciuccarelli on the concept of intentionality of designers. of authors of sonifications in general. We call it we say designers because we see it from a design, meaning the field of design perspective. So going back to Morgan's comments, we tried to see not the impact, but for now we did only the first part, which is what are the authors trying to communicate? Then of course we should see the second part. Did the public get the message right? But so we used these first 15-20 cases to define a continuum that went from a high degree of intentionality to a lower degree. Still working out the terms. So a lower degree will be the author like Brian Ford that says, I don't want to communicate anything, I just want to make music. The higher degree was in that case a project on Egypt buildings collapsing, so a very relevant social issue in Egypt. So I found these cases myself. You know, you stumble upon cases all the time. And then we started systematically, we created the archive and we started systematically adding. So we do various things. Sometimes we take an entire archive for example, ICAD proceedings, and we start manually putting the cases in. But because we are categorizing these areas, we have these fields, right? Topic, goal. It takes quite a long time because every time we read everything that we can to try to understand and interpret what the goal is. Sometimes even the topic is not easy because we started with more specific labels than physical sciences, right? We started, I don't know, geology, geography, but then we realized that in the architecture of sciences as they are traditionally defined in the tree of sciences, I don't know, climate change will be part of geography, there will be part of, I mean, it's not so clear. So we decided to take the main branches, physical sciences, life sciences, and then we are adding subtopics. But because the subtopics list is not complete, I didn't put it in the visualization that I shared with you. We are working out an annual report that will take a while. And then, so we do this, we are trying to implement some automated internet scraping. So to search the internet with keywords and start, you know, putting things in. It will take a while because then data has to be cleaned, and yeah, it will take a while. Then we had some partnerships that provided us with sub-archives. We have this Sonification art blog that the author of the blog gave us all his archive to take. He was very well organized, and then of course his Sonification for art.
Yeah, I think that's really clear. So you're still in the process of making a continuum of what is intended and what is not so intended. So just now, I'm going to make a reflection, and perhaps maybe the audience in this group might be able to contribute and share your reflection. It's really about sonification over time, because sometimes when we listen, we click, we only get a snippet of it. But yesterday's experience going through 138 years with 1 hour, by dedicating that 1 hour with Renix and Moon's performance, I really got a sense that I knew musically what I was tracing. I could hear it when it was 1940 to 1946. There was no available data, and the musical structure changed, the video changed. I just felt that the time that is so involved in sonification and is the key parameter, in fact, must surely play a part in our understanding of the data. Right? So how does one sort of compensate that, or compromise, or make some provision for this aspect of time? It's just a reflection. I just don't know if the rest might have some thought about that. We're not dealing with visual, because visual is really quite quick. You see something. But sound, you need to give time. And I think it tells something that visual can't tell. I don't know, maybe I'm just so possessive about sound. Yeah, sound person. Yeah. Well, Any thoughts on that from the sound people in this group?
Yes. I mean, perhaps I would say that, you know, just in general terms, because music is it has this time dimension. So if you're talking about experiencing the time in which climate change takes place, so in a way it's a sonification of time, and so you are using time to express time, and so this is where the, I don't know, the interesting problems might arise. Yes, I do. Yeah, I do see your point in a way, and for our exhibition, yes, I mean there are several works, you know, which kind of go through this same process. You know, maybe perhaps, you know, they don't all take, you know, an hour and 20 minutes. You know, some do it in like 3 minutes, and it's just very quick. But you know, it's a similar kind of, you know, pattern that emerges, or something that's doing this perhaps.
I have
yeah,
something
so,
on the question of audience and time. Where the degree to which you allow the audience to navigate versus, you know, presenting them a structure that is already fixed, might be an interesting difference there, because you could imagine somebody with their mouse able to click, you know, and skip, you know, decades, versus being in the seat for an hour or, you know, 10 minutes or something like that. And it seems like having the audience's consent to sit through something says a lot about the audience, but also presents a lot more possibility for this kind of, how do you say it, temporal, like Rio was saying, presenting time with time, right? I'm not sure where I was going with that.
I think the context in which you are exposed to a work is extremely relevant. So I'm quite looking forward to this annual report that I'm trying to do with the archive, to really see when sound is, how sound is used then when it comes to really present it to the public. So a lot of projects are still in combination with a visual medium. We cannot escape that. So it's either video, it's either a visualization. There are apps. We imported this sub-archive on astronomy, and there are plenty of apps that come with the sonification. So you have an interface, right, which is graphical. I was quite surprised to see that the climate change cases are mainly sound only, but it's a sound only according to our basic classification, because then like as in Per Magnus' work, it's not sound only, it's really an embodied experience. It's a contextualized in a space with gesture, so all your sensory system is alerted, right, in a concert hall. And again, this goes back to the decisions that the authors take, or even to unforeseen circumstances. But I think it really depends on how the sonification is experienced. Yeah, and there is this, I don't know, maybe, for example, I'm working mainly with real-time monitoring. So of course, sonification is a great asset because you are monitoring in real time. So again, it's time for time. But the traditional concert set, electroacoustic concert setting, let's say, in which you sit and you listen to something for a very long time, or averagely long time, and longer than internet fruition, and you are also supposed to perhaps recognize patterns. I mean, you ask a lot to the public. It's not so easy, but maybe that's not your intention. Maybe you just want a a visceral message to arrive, an immersive experience. Well, yeah, all the details that create an artwork are relevant, really. So yeah, one of the goals of the archive is to have a critical mass so we can see if there are trends in how sonification is used by authors, and it's not just individual experiences. So I think I didn't reply Joyce on authors can submit. Yes, anyone can submit. And then, but then we check the case. We check each case, we categorize, we decide whether it's sonification or not. They typically are, but in some cases, maybe the website doesn't work, or there's also that problem, going back to what Morgan was saying, the problem of how do we store and make available these works on the internet? I bumped into plenty of cases that, yeah, the sound was not audible anywhere. Sometimes because they were research projects, some other times because the link was broken, didn't work. Maybe there are projects of the 90s. So sound is still difficult to get across, but an awesome experience at the same time. So I'm still convinced. Per Magnus, do you want to comment on whether your work is well categorized under art or parameter mapping or any?
Yeah, no, I think it's.
Like
I like very much categorization. I think it's an important process of trying to understand and to refine and to make some decisions about when things are similar or not to some degree. And in the whole tagging structure, and I wanted to ask you a question of how you use that on the web archive. Maybe you can explain a little bit more about how all these projects, how they are searchable, perhaps via categories and tags. I'm guessing, yeah, that's how it works. As for my own project there, that's perfectly fine. It is an art project, maybe as such, it's also a bit of a struggle to make scientists sort of see and to make them be interested and to get them to, see the value of it. I guess the value that as artists we can recognize, but scientists, they really do look for different things.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you. True, I didn't focus much on the entire archive, but I can see that we have 369 cases now. More than, they cannot move around. So yeah, the archive grew quite much, so it's a little bit slow at the moment, but you see here you can submit your case. And for now, we are working out, you can do a free search, and then for now we have all the topics. It's very slow. Yeah, well, if you have a computer, it's probably easier if you open it in your Windows, but we have all those 32 topics that I mentioned at the beginning. Plus, also, sorry, it's all 32, but what's going on? You can search by year. The first case is this, maybe sound ranging. If you wonder what it was in 1914, is how the British Army would locate German artillery using sound to trace the position. So it's a kind of a reversed sonification. We are trying to see how we can categorize, because we have a few cases of like this that for now are labeled audification, but I don't think it's really true to what it is. I mean, using sound as data, actually. I cannot navigate it. Wow, I'm sorry, there's something strange. So you can search by goals, and we will work on clustering the goals, so they are not 32. Sorry, the topics. You can search by goal, you can search by year, but then when you open a specific project, you see some fields are still, well, still missing, but you will also tell you the user, it will tell you the type of sonification and the media mix, and we are trying to make this as something that has a specific URL, otherwise you just redirect to the, okay, we started, to their website. We highlighted some labels because these are collections that we are working on specifically, so we just submitted an article on sonification for astronomy. So we made the tag for astronomy visible. You can access directly from the cases, even if, yeah, sorry, this, I don't know why this is not working. Because the reason is that astronomy is part of physical sciences. So at the moment you won't be able to find astronomy under the topics in the current categorization. We did the same for COVID-19 because we recently presented the cases for a conference. So you will have COVID-19 as a label here. And then we also highlighted tools because the conversation around tools for sonification is quite a relevant one. Tools can also be searched for under all topics, but we wanted to make it clearer for the visitor because it's something that we are asked about very, very often. And this is, so we are using, as for the user experience, we are combining these labels to highlight things that we want to highlight, plus a free search with the menu that is not working at the moment. Perhaps because I asked to upload the new cases for today. That's why we have 300, we have more than what I thought. And I think this is causing some troubles because the website is already overloaded. We are releasing a new version soon, and we will also revisit all these criteria. First of all, my task at the moment is to compile all the categories for each case, because some, as you saw, some of the cases don't have the media mix highlighted. So I have this file with the metadata, and I have to go through all the cases again and make sure all the information is in, but it's not so easy, as I mentioned, because some of the cases exist in a paper maybe published at ICAD in 1994. And we have to see if we find all the information we want to have in the metadata.
Okay, Sara, thank you very much for your presentation and also this extended discussion. So turns out we didn't need the other presentation. We could have had longer as well. And so yes, I look forward to exploring the archive later on. Okay, so thank you very much, Sara.
Thanks for having me, and thank you for
you.
organizing this first edition. Looking forward to the next in person.